I want you to do something for me. Just for a second, close your eyes and mentally walk into your kitchen. Go to that one cabinet, the one I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, I know it.
Or maybe it's a drawer, the one that gets stuck every single time you try to open it.
The drawer of good intentions. That's what I call it.
Exactly. The graveyard. You finally yank it open, and what do you see? It's just this clutter of little glass jars. Some of them are sticky for some unknowable reason.
Yeah, why are they always sticky?
Some of them have labels that are peeling off. You've got a jar of paprika that you were pretty sure you bought 3 apartments ago. You've got something called poultry seasoning that you bought for exactly one Thanksgiving in, like 2018.
And it has sat there completely untouched ever since, just gathering dust.
Right. And for the vast majority of us, we look at this stuff, this cinnamon, this cumin, this dried oregano, and we think of it as decoration. It's sprinkles.
Mm-hmm.
You cook a meal, and then at the very end, you shake a little colored dust on top, and you pat yourself on the back for being fancy.
That is the standard approach, isn't it? It's the garnish phase. It's a total afterthought.
But today, we are going to completely dismantle that idea. We are looking at a source material that, honestly, it just blew my mind. It's called Val's Cookbook, Spices.
Right?
But calling this thing a cookbook feels like doing it a massive disservice. It reads more like a tactical field manual for biological warfare, geopolitical history, and psychological strategy.
It really does. It frames the entire concept of the spice rack, not as a collection of nice little flavors, but as an arsenal. And the core thesis that Val presents is that spice is not decoration. It is intent.
Intent. I love that word in this context. It's so active.
It's powerful. Val argues that spice is the reason humans cross oceans. It is the reason empires burned. It is the reason the power structures of our modern world look the way they do. And on a biological level, it's even more intense. Spice is the reason plants survive.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We want to take you from being someone who just blindly dumps powder into a pot because a recipe told you to someone who understands the why behind the flavor.
Yes.
We're going to cover the biology, which is fascinatingly aggressive, the really dark history of how these things moved around the world, and then get into the actual strategy of how to manage a spice rack so it doesn't manage you.
And we're going to debunk a few massive myths along the way.
Yeah.
Especially regarding what we consider bland cultures versus spicy cultures.
Oh, I can't wait for that part. But let's start at the very, very beginning. The biology. Val's cookbook kicks off with a really important distinction that I think most of us mess up, or at least we use the terms interchangeably. What is the actual difference between an herb and a spice?
It seems like semantics, doesn't it? Like it's all just plant matter we put in our food.
Right.
But biologically, they're completely different survival strategies.
Okay, let's unpack this. Start with herbs. What are we talking about?
So think of basil, parsley, cilantro, mint. Physiologically, these are the leaves. They are the solar panels of the plant.
The solar panels, okay.
They are soft, they are green, and they evolved for rapid growth. Their entire job is to capture sunlight and photosynthesize as fast as humanly or plantly possible to fuel the plant.
So they're the live fast, die young part of the plant.
Exactly. They are metabolic engines. And because they are so soft and full of water, their flavor compounds are incredibly volatile.
Volatile meaning?
Meaning they evaporate into the air almost instantly. That's why fresh herbs smell so strong. When you just brush against them, they're releasing those compounds into the air. But it's also why if you cook basil for an hour in a stew, it tastes like nothing.
Right, it just disappears.
It's fragile. It's meant to be fresh. Its power is in its immediacy.
Okay, so that's the leaf, the solar panel. What is a spice then?
A spice is the armor. We are talking about seeds, bark, roots, fruits, flowers. Cumin is a seed. Cinnamon is literally the bark of a tree. Ginger is a rhizome, a root buried underground. These are the parts of the plant that evolved to survive extreme stress.
Stress like what? Just weather?
Weather, sure. Drought, scorching heat, freezing cold, but also being buried in the soil for months, or being gnawed on by pests and fungi. These parts of the plant are either the genetic future, the seeds, or the structural integrity, the bark and roots. They have to be tough.
Ah, so they're dense, protective.
They're built to withstand time.
Which explains so much. It explains why you can keep a cinnamon stick in a jar for a few years and still resemble cinnamon. But if you leave basil on the counter for 2 days, it turns into, green slime.
Precisely. Spices are nature's time capsules. They lock the flavor, the essential oils inside these really hard cell walls that don't break down easily.
So herbs are the solar panels, spices are the bank vault.
That is a perfect analogy. And while we're defining things, we have to address the elephant in the room. The one thing in your kitchen that is neither an herb nor a spice.
Right.
Salt.
Val is very, very firm on this. Salt is not a spice.
It isn't. Not
Okay.
even close. Salt is a mineral. It's a rock. It does not grow. It does not die. It does not rot. And it has no biological agenda. It is completely inorganic.
Okay.
The distinction Val makes, and I think this is just brilliant, is that salt reveals flavor that is already there. It wakes up your tongue. But spice creates flavor that wasn't there before.
Ooh, I like that. So salt is the amplifier, but spice is the instrument.
Exactly. Or, to use your analogy, salt is the terrain, spice is the vegetation. You need the terrain to support the vegetation, but they're fundamentally different things.
Okay, so we know what they are. But the part of the source material that really, like I said, blew my mind was the plant defense theory. Because I always assumed, arrogantly, I guess, that cinnamon tastes like cinnamon so that I can enjoy my morning latte.
Right.
I just assumed nature made these flavors for us.
Of course. That's the anthropocentric view. The world exists for my pleasure. But nature doesn't optimize for your latte, and it certainly does not optimize for your dinner. The aha moment here is that spices are actually chemical defense systems,
Chemical defense.
like weapons.
Exactly like weapons. Think about it. A plant cannot run away.
It is rooted to the spot. If a bug or a fungus or a mammal wants to eat it, the plant can't fight back physically.
Right, you can't punch it.
So it fights back chemically. It evolved what are called secondary compounds, which are basically toxins, to deter predators.
So when we eat spice, we are effectively eating biological weapons.
You're eating the plant's attempt to not be eaten. Yes.
That is slightly disturbing when you really think about it.
It gets even more fascinating when you look at the specific mechanisms. Let's take the chili pepper, for example. The compound is capsaicin, which is what makes it spicy.
Right.
That evolved specifically to deter mammals,
Why mammals specifically? Why not like insects or birds?
because mammals have molars. We crush seeds. If a mammal eats a chili pepper, we grind the seeds into paste, and that destroys the plant's offspring.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the plant evolved a chemical weapon, capsaicin, that targets a very specific receptor in mammals to cause pain. It's a biological sign that says, if you bite this, you will regret it.
But birds eat peppers all the time, right? I've seen that.
Yes, and here is the genius of evolution. Birds do not have the receptors for capsaicin. They literally cannot feel the heat. To a bird, a chili pepper tastes like a sweet berry.
No way.
And birds don't have molars. They swallow seeds whole. So they eat the pepper, they fly 5 miles away, and then they poop out the seeds perfectly intact with a little packet of fertilizer to help it grow.
That is brilliant. So the plant is basically saying, birds, you are my logistics team. Come on in. Mammals, you are destroyers. Stay away.
Exactly. It is a highly targeted biological strategy. And then humans came along, this strange species, and we figured out that if we dilute these toxins or cook them or combine them, they don't kill us.
They just give us a thrill.
They actually give us a thrill. We learned to crave the very thing that was meant to hurt us.
It really reframes the whole spice rack. It's not a collection of flavors. It's an arsenal of survival tools.
It is. And Val breaks down this arsenal into profiles that match their biological function. So you have heat, like chili and black pepper, which activates pain receptors, literally tricking your brain into thinking you're burning, which then releases endorphins.
The runner's high of food.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you have warmth, cinnamon, clove, nutmeg. Biologically, these are often antifungal or antibacterial. They protect the plant from rot and mold. But to us, they signal comfort. They feel grounding.
And there's bitterness, like with turmeric or fenugreek.
In nature, bitter often signals poison. It's a warning sign. Don't eat this. But in small, controlled doses, humans interpret it as medicine. It stimulates the liver. It aids digestion.
And the last one is aroma, like cardamom, coriander.
Right, which works more on memory and mood than just the tongue. It's all just chemical communication, really.
This biology actually leads perfectly into the geography. Because if these spices are defense mechanisms against rot and pests, it makes perfect sense that they would be more intense in places where life is harder for a plant.
Oh, spot on. This is what Val calls the latitude logic. Have you ever just stopped to notice that cuisines from hot tropical climates, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Central America, tend to be very, very spicy?
Yeah, of course.
While cuisines from, say, Northern Europe or Scandinavia are, let's say, gentler.
Yeah. And usually people just chalk that up to culture or taste, like, oh, Indian people just like heat. But you're saying it's actually survival?
It's ecology at its root. Think about the tropics. You have high heat, you have high humidity, What does that mean for food?
It spoils fast.
Super fast. Bacteria and fungi go crazy. So the plants in these regions had to evolve massive chemical defenses, really strong antimicrobial compounds, just to survive the constant threat of rot.
And people just figured this out.
People in these regions figured out that if they cooked their meat with these spices, chili, ginger, garlic, turmeric, the food didn't make them sick. It preserved the food. It killed the microbes.
That is fascinating. So a curry isn't just delicious. It's a preservation strategy. It's edible technology.
It's absolutely edible technology. Now, contrast that. Go to Northern Europe, Sweden, Norway. It's cold.
Yeah.
You don't have that same bacterial pressure. And you have winter.
So their preservation strategy was different.
It had to be. It was antimicrobial spice. It was freezing, curing, smoking, and salting. They didn't need to bombard their food with heavy spices to make it safe to eat.
Which brings us to what you called the bland myth. Because I think we've all heard, or maybe even said, that Northern European food, or even Japanese food, is bland compared to, say, Indian or Mexican food.
And Val pushes back so hard on this. The source text has this great line, silence can be intentional. Just because a cuisine isn't shouting with heat doesn't mean it lacks culture or flavor.
Right. It just has a different goal, a different intention.
A totally different goal. Look at Japanese cuisine. It's not bland by any stretch of the imagination. It is obsessed with the quality of the ingredient itself, the freshness, the texture, the purity of a piece of fish or a vegetable.
And if you have a perfect piece of fish,
Dumping a ton of chili powder on it isn't flavor. It's a distraction. It's just noise. You're covering up the thing you're supposed to be celebrating.
it's like putting a bumper sticker on a Ferrari.
Perfect. And you see a similar thing with French or Italian food, which Val calls the middle approach.
The middle cuisines, okay.
Yes. In those cultures, spice is architecture, not color. In France, they use herbs and technique reductions, stocks, fats, to build these complex layers of flavor.
So technique replaces the heavy spice.
In a way, yes. And in Italy, it's about the quality of the olive oil and the tomato. They use spice, of course, black pepper, maybe some nutmeg, but it's there to support the structure, not to be the star of the show. It signals a confidence in the core ingredients.
So high spice usage often comes from a history of needing to preserve or mask in a hot climate, while low spice usage often comes from a history of cold preservation or this intense focus on the ingredient itself.
Exactly. It's not better or worse, it's just geography. Every single dish echoes a climate.
Okay, speaking of echoes, let's talk about the echoes of history. Because we can't talk about spice without talking about trade, and this is where Val's cookbook gets pretty dark.
It does. And it's necessary context. We are so used to spices being these cheap little commodities in plastic shakers. But for most of human history, spice was the global currency. Before oil, before data, there was pepper.
Pepper and nutmeg were once worth more than gold. That's not an exaggeration.
Not at all. Literally, you could pay your rent in peppercorns in the Middle Ages. They were a store of value. And because they were so valuable, they drove global conflict. The entire age of exploration, Columbus, Magellan, Vasco da Gama.
We learn about it in school as this great period of discovery.
And Val reframes it. It wasn't about scientific curiosity. That was a corporate acquisition strategy.
It was about cutting out the middleman.
Precisely. Europe wanted direct access to the spice markets in India and the Spice Islands, which is modern-day Indonesia. They were just tired of paying the insane markups to the Arab and Venetian traders. They wanted the source code.
And when they finally got there, it wasn't a polite business transaction.
No. It was what Val calls the violence of flavor. The book details how the Dutch, for example, controlled the nutmeg trade by force. Nutmeg only grew on this tiny cluster of islands, the Banda Islands.
Just there, nowhere else in the world.
Nowhere else. So the Dutch seized the islands, they displaced or massacred the local populations, and then they destroyed clove trees on other islands just to artificially limit the supply and keep prices sky high.
That's just wild to think about that when you're sprinkling nutmeg on your eggnog. Like actual wars were fought over this nut.
It is. It's a very heavy history packed into a very small jar. And then there's the Colombian exchange, which I find endlessly fascinating because it completely upends our idea of traditional food.
Ah, this is the chili pepper paradox.
Yes. We tend to think of certain ingredients as being ancient in a culture. When you think of Indian food or Thai food or Sichuan food in China, what is the defining
The
characteristic?
heat. The chili pepper. It's the first thing I think of.
And yet, until the late 1400s, until Columbus and the others sailed to the Americas and these global trade routes opened up, There were no chili peppers in India. There were no chilies in Thailand. There were no chilies in China.
That breaks my brain a little bit. I can't even picture it. What were they using for heat before that?
Black pepper, long pepper, ginger. Pungency existed, for sure, but that specific, sharp, addictive capsaicin heat of the chili, that was a global import from the Americas. It arrived in Asia, and these cultures adopted it so thoroughly and so quickly that it feels ancient now.
Wow.
But it's actually a relatively modern remix of their cuisine.
It just shows how adaptable food culture is. We take something new and we make it ours really, really fast. But today, the situation is totally different. We have what Val calls modern privilege.
Yes. The privilege of abundance. We can walk into a supermarket and buy spices from 5 different continents for $3. Availability is constant. We don't have to wait for the trade winds.
Right.
And Val's point here isn't to make us feel guilty about buying cheap cumin. It's about attention.
Attention. I like that.
When something that was once incredibly valuable becomes cheap and abundant, we stop respecting it. We treat it like background noise. We lose our respect for the labor, the land, and the history that is packed into that little jar.
So the takeaway is, don't feel bad, just pay attention. Realize what you're holding. Realize the journey it took to get to your kitchen.
Exactly.
I love that. This isn't about guilt. It's about attention. Okay, so we've got the history, we've got the biology. Now I want to get practical, because Val has a very specific philosophy on how to actually cook with this stuff. The quote that stood out to me was, "Spice is not dumped, it is deployed."
This is the critical shift from habit to strategy. Most home cooks, and I'm definitely guilty of this too sometimes, we just follow the recipe. It says add a teaspoon of curry powder, so we just dump it in with the liquid or the tomatoes. Val says that is a massive wasted opportunity.
So let's talk techniques. Technique number 1 in the book is blooming. What is it, and why does the chemistry matter so much?
This goes right back to the biology. Most of the key flavor compounds in spices, the essential oils that make them taste like themselves, are fat-soluble, not water-soluble.
Explain that like I'm 5. What does that mean for my cooking?
Okay, imagine the flavor is locked inside a tiny little wax safe. Water can't get through the wax, it just rolls off, so the safe stays locked.
But oil can.
But oil can dissolve the wax. So if you dump raw spices into a watery stock or a can of tomatoes, you'll get a gritty texture and a kind of surface-level flavor. But if you toast those spices in oil or fat, butter, ghee, vegetable oil, before you add the liquid,
You're unlocking the safe.
you're unlocking the safe. The heat and the fat work together to release those oils. You're infusing the fat itself with the flavor. And since the fat spreads through the entire dish...
The flavor spreads through the entire dish. It becomes 3-dimensional.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So that step in so many recipes where it says saute the onions and then add the spices, that is scientifically crucial. You are extracting the soul of the spice into the fat.
Okay, technique number 2, layering and timing. This seems a little more advanced.
It's just about recognizing that heat changes flavor over time. If you add a spice early in the cooking process, like the beginning of a 2-hour stew, the flavor mellows out. It becomes deep, earthy, and really integrated into the background.
The base notes.
The base notes. If you add that same spice late, right before serving, it stays bright, aromatic, and punchy, the high notes.
So if I'm making a chili, for example, adding cumin at the start with the onions gives me a different result than stirring some in at the very end.
A completely different result. And a master strategist does both. You layer it, you put the earthy, deep cumin notes in at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then you finish with a little fresh cumin at the end for that bright aroma.
I like that. It's like mixing audio. You've got your bass track and your treble track. Now, what about the improvisation rule? Val says if you have no recipe, you should ask yourself 3 questions.
This is for when you're standing in the kitchen, staring at a chicken breast or a head of cauliflower, and you just don't want to look up a recipe. Question 1 is, what do I want?
As in, what flavor?
What experience? Do I want warmth? Do I want heat? Do I want depth? Pick a direction. Don't just grab random jars because you think you should. Be intentional.
Okay, so I've picked a direction. Question 2.
What fat is here? Because remember, fat is the vehicle for your flavor. Are you using butter, olive oil, coconut milk? The fat needs to match the spice profile you've chosen. Butter loves cinnamon and nutmeg. Olive oil loves oregano and black pepper.
And the third question.
What balances it? This is maybe the most important one. Spices are intense. They can be heavy or one-dimensional if they're not balanced.
So how do we balance them?
Val breaks it down really simply. Heat needs fat, acid, or sweetness to stand on. Bitter needs sweet. Earthy needs acid.
Can you give us a real-world example of that balancing act? That's where I always get lost.
Sure. Let's say you've made a lentil soup. You used a lot of cumin and turmeric. You taste it, and it feels muddy. You know that feeling. It's heavy, it's flat.
Oh, yeah. My first instinct is always to add more salt.
And that's everyone's instinct.
Ah.
But salt won't fix mud. The flavor is just bogged down.
So what do you do?
It's earthy, so it needs acid. You add a big squeeze of lemon juice. The acid cuts right through that earthiness and lifts the flavor. Suddenly, the cumin tastes vibrant again. It's like turning on the lights.
Wow. Okay.
Or, if you made a dish too spicy, you went too hard on the chili, don't add water. Water just spreads the capsaicin oil around your mouth. You need fat or sugar to neutralize the heat. So you add a dollop of yogurt, sour cream, a splash of coconut milk, or even a pinch of sugar. It's a chemical equation you're solving.
It makes cooking feel a lot more like engineering, which I really appreciate. It's less magic, more logic. Now let's pivot a bit to the psychological side of things, because spice isn't just about taste, it's about identity.
Oh, absolutely. Spice usage is a huge signal of personality. We've all met the high spice person.
The person who treats eating a ghost pepper like it's an Olympic sport.
The ego cook. Exactly.
No.
High spice use can signal confidence and cultural rootedness, and that's great. But
Yeah.
sometimes it is absolutely a performance. It's bravado.
Yeah.
And Val calls this out specifically. Spice should serve the dish, not the ego. If you make something so punishingly hot that nobody can taste the actual ingredients, you haven't cooked. You've just assaulted your guests,
And on the flip side of that, you have the low spice profile.
which can signal sensitivity or a preference for clarity and purity of ingredients, like we talked about with Japanese cuisine. But unfortunately, in modern food culture, we've created this false hierarchy.
What do you mean?
We treat high spice tolerance as a virtue, like you're better at eating, and low tolerance as a kind of failure, a weakness.
Which is so silly because, as we established earlier, it's mostly just biology and exposure. It's not a moral failing.
Exactly. Tolerance is just your pain receptors getting downregulated. It's not a skill, it's just desensitization. Val wants us to reframe this completely. Stop judging people's spice levels, and instead look at spice as medicine.
Yeah.
Historically, that's exactly what it was.
Right? It wasn't about pleasure, it was about function.
Totally. Turmeric is a powerful anti-inflammatory. Ginger helps with nausea. Cumin aids digestion. As Val says in the book, food that helps you function is not indulgent. It's intelligent.
I think that's a much healthier way to look at it. You're not wimping out if you use ginger instead of chili. You might just be settling your stomach for the day.
Precisely. It's about listening to your body, not proving a point.
All right, we're approaching the final stretch. And this is the part I think everyone listening really needs to hear. The spice audit. How to manage the chaos in the pantry.
The dreaded spice drawer. The final boss.
Val has some hard truths for us here. First one, shelf life. I think a lot of people, myself included, assume spices are like Twinkies. They basically last forever.
They really, really don't. And this is key. Spices do not expire in the sense that they will become dangerous or make you sick. A 10-year-old jar of oregano won't kill you,
Okay, that's good to know.
but it is useless. It's dead. Spices fade. Their essential oils, those volatile compounds we talked about, they just evaporate over time.
So what's the actual timeline we're looking at? How long do I have?
For ground spices, anything that's already been powdered, 6 to 12 months. That's it. After a year, you are mostly just adding color dust to your food. There's no flavor left.
6 months? Oh no, I think I have paprika from before the pandemic. I'm almost certain of it.
Laughs. Most of us do. That's the norm. Now, whole spices, like a whole nutmeg or a cinnamon stick, peppercorns, they can last 2 to 4 years because the oils are still locked inside until you grind them.
So rule 1 is buy whole whenever you can. But for the stuff we already have, Val suggests the smell test.
This is the only test that matters. Forget the best by date on the bottle. Open the jar, stick your nose in it. If it smells like dust, it is dead. If it smells vibrant and it punches you in the nose with its aroma, it is alive.
I love the quote from the book, if it doesn't speak, it can't teach.
Exactly. If it doesn't speak, throw it out. It's taking up valuable real estate.
And where should that real estate be? Because Val has a very strong opinion on this.
Yes. Please, for the love of flavor, stop storing your spices above the stove.
But it's so convenient. It's right there.
It is the single worst possible place for them. Heat, light, and humidity are the 3 enemies of spice. Storing them above the stove is like slow cooking the flavor right out of them over the course of a year.
So where should they go?
A cool, dark, airtight place. A cabinet away from the stove, a drawer. Anything to protect them from their enemies.
Okay, noted. I will be rearranging my entire kitchen after this deep dive. Now, what about the letting go philosophy? Because I have this guilt about throwing stuff away. It feels wasteful.
Val addresses this head-on. Keeping a dead, useless spice is not thrift, it is hoarding. It's okay to throw it away. It's actually better to have 5 jars of vibrant, living spice that you use all the time than 50 jars of colored dust that just give you anxiety.
It clears your mind and your palate.
It does, which leads right into the idea of the beginner's rack. If someone is listening right now and wants to clear the deck, throw it all out, and start fresh, what do they actually need?
Do you really need 50 jars?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Val suggests a core set of maybe 6 or 7 things to master first. Get good quality black pepper, cumin, whole if possible,
Yeah.
paprika or a chili powder depending on your heat preference,
Huh.
cinnamon, garlic powder because it has its uses, and 1 dried herb that you actually like and will use, maybe oregano or thyme.
That's it. That's the whole list.
That's enough to cook your way across dozens of global cuisines. Master those. Understand how they react to heat, how they react to fat, how they balance each other. Then you can go by the fenugreek. Then you can explore star anise. Start with a solid foundation.
That is so freeing. It stops the paralysis of choice when you're staring at a wall of spices at the store.
It does. And it all goes back to Val's stewardship principle. Spice is a living resource. If you don't manage it, it manages you. Your messy cabinet is managing you.
This has been such a journey. We've gone from like plant defense mechanisms and chemical warfare to colonial wars to the shelf above my stove.
It really connects the micro and the macro, doesn't it? The choices in your kitchen echo through history.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Val's cookbook, spices, what's the final takeaway? What's the philosophical anchor here that we should leave with?
I think it comes back to that idea of an evolutionary conversation. When you season a dish, you are echoing a climate, a struggle for survival, and a vast human history. You're participating in thousands of years of human adaptation and creativity.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
But Val leaves us with this final simple thought. Spice doesn't ask you to prove anything. It asks you to notice.
It asks you to notice.
So don't perform. Don't worry about being authentic or impressive. Just open the jar, smell it, and decide if it's still alive. And then use it with intent. That's the whole thing.
I'm going to challenge everyone listening. Go to your pantry right now. Pick up that 1 jar you haven't touched in a while. Open it. If it smells like dust, let it go. If it smells like a memory or a possibility, cook something with it tonight.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one. Stay curious.